So imagine you want to measure a person's height. Easy, you'll say, and you'll probably use some kind of ruler like a tape measure. Assessing qualities in the physical world seems pretty straightforward to me. But even here, there's some decisions to be made. So how many of you would measure in feet and inches? It's probably the majority here. I'm European, I would measure in centimeters, but both are equally valid. Now, I'm a psychologist, and for us, measuring qualities, not so straightforward. We regularly assess this. The invisible, such as thoughts and feelings and the way people go about making decisions. Because we can't touch or see what it is that we're measuring, psychologists often disagree about the best way to define and measure constructs. And as a result, there's a big diversity of opinions in my field on how to do science right. That diversity is a beautiful thing, but recently it became more of a headache for me. I study age differences and how people make decisions. And in my most recent project, I wanted to find out if older adults are more likely to follow their feelings when they judge risks than younger adults are. Or you could put that differently and say, I wanted to know if somebody is as old as Indiana Jones here, so Harrison Ford was in his 60s in this movie, does he trust his feelings more when he takes one of his very well-known risks than someone who's younger, like his son Mutt, who is in his 20s in this movie? So we call this strategy to follow your feelings rather than other information around you, the affect heuristic. And if indeed we find that older adults follow this strategy more when they take risks, then that would have very serious implications for how they make financial investments or how they make healthcare choices. Well, to my dismay, I soon realized that people don't really agree on what is and isn't proof of the affect heuristic. In fact, people have tested, measured, defined this heuristic so many different ways that there's not really one agreed upon best method to know if someone has used that strategy. And as a result, there's really a diverse pool of methods for me to choose from. I think I'm clicking wrong here. There we go. And that presents me with a very dangerous gamble, kind of like Indiana Jones trying to pick the Holy Grail. So I could choose any one of the methods that are at my disposal, but what does that mean for my results? Now, imagine I choose any one and I don't find any age differences. Now, that could mean that there are no age differences in the real world, or it could mean they exist, but I can't really find them with this method that I chose. And the opposite is true as well. Now imagine I do find age differences, but then someone tries to replicate my findings, which is a very big thing in psychology right now, trying to replicate things other people have claimed exist or don't exist in the world. And then they can't find the same thing if they use a slightly different method. We won't know if I'm right or if they are right because no one has ever taken the time to compare these different ways of measuring what we think is the affect heuristic. So what can I do? That's where I come in. And I can't feasibly test all of the different methods that people have come up with to say someone has used the affect heuristic. I also can't just keep testing until I find one way to support my hypothesis and then just share that with the world. That wouldn't be right. But what I can do is choose a select few and then be very open about that from the beginning. So in my case, I chose 4 different methods. So on top of looking for age differences, I'm now also interested in whether or not these 4 methods actually test the same strategy. And I want to know why they produce the same findings or different findings. And in order to better understand what is going on with these methods, I relate them to different psychological constructs, such as personality, people's cognitive ability, which will influence what kind of strategies they have at their disposal, and also how they feel at the time of taking the study, because again, I think that would influence whether or not they will follow their feelings. Let me close by saying this. Science really thrives on diversity, and as a scientist in training, I'm constantly encouraged to add to the diversity in my field, either by contributing new knowledge or creating new methods. For this project, I decided that my contribution should be that I make a little bit more sense of the diversity that we're already facing when it comes to these certain methods, so that the next time a psychologist has to play Indiana Jones in their quest for the best way of measuring the affect heuristic, they have a somewhat easier time choosing their holy grail. Thank you.